Hey guys, welcome back to the Fulco. It's a sunny, happy, fantastic Friday morning for everyone in Tottenham land, or not everyone maybe, but for a lot of people in Tottenham land, because Spurs finally did it. They produced a two-legged, consistent and, dare I say it, comfortable performance to get through the semi-final against Bodo Glimt. I think one of the things that, looking back at the game as fans, we can be very, very happy about is we did it in a very un-Spursy kind of way. So there wasn't the fear throughout the course of that game. There wasn't the early onslaught from the opposition. I think that's credit to Tottenham as much as anything else. And we didn't put ourselves under unnecessary pressure. We didn't make a host of individual or collective errors that allowed any kind of feeling of getting back into the game for the opposition. And so all of those things adding up to a very well-deserved victory in the semi-final, and the Spurs go marching on to Bilbao. So just going to have a very quick look back and a recap of the game and how I felt it went. We have gone to this kind of system that has worked on a couple of occasions now in Europe. So I feel like we've used a similar kind of system in the second leg against Frankfurt. We then used it again in the home leg against Bodo, and we've now used it in the away leg again, which is setting our field position slightly differently. The play out from the back looks very different. The double pivot in midfield looks a bit more balanced. And in part, that is down to personnel. So it's been forced on us, but in part, it was already there when Bergvall and Maddison were both in that first choice midfield three. And all of that has led to the fact that this is knockout football. This is tournament football. You only get 2 games in these preliminary rounds, and then obviously the final being a one-legged shootout. You don't get second chances. So to me, it feels like we've evolved a little bit in terms of what we were trying to achieve with the team over a 38-game season, and the things that the coaching staff and Ange were trying to put down, into the realization that these are basically like one-off games. So you can't afford to have learning moments or too many learning moments in knockout football. It's too important. Now, would we have done this if Tottenham were actually having a very good league season and we had gone deep in some of these cup competitions? We'll never know. It's a question that you can speculate on, but there's no point, because there's no universe that exists where we could test that hypothesis unless Ange stays next season, and that's what we do. And we'd love to see it, have a really good league season and go deep in the cups. But for the moment, the fact that we've changed the way we've played meant that the game last night really did feel much more comfortable. We settled into it. All of the key stats and the metrics, attacking wise, were in Tottenham's favour. So again, it speaks volumes to that group of players and the way that the setup was put out there, that we are able to go away from home to a difficult venue, and don't let anybody kind of disparage Bodo or who they are or how big they are. They have beaten big teams. They have a phenomenal record at home. It's conditions that they're used to that are probably a bit more challenging for other teams coming in. And Tottenham went there and, in their own way, without dominating possession, managed to dominate the game in the ways that they wanted to. So, there was no early goal, early onslaught by Bodo. Tottenham were largely in control. They were very stable defensively, and then they were very measured in the way that they were going to attack with the ball for long periods of the game. They were very happy to explore the avenues to get forward, as opposed to the fully committed blast forward, try things, be very experimental. And I think that speaks to the way that Ange and his coaching staff set the team up to play, and the players took that on board and executed it really well. If we look at the game and a few key moments, not a great deal happened in the first half, and that's exactly the way we'd want it. We did have a moment, I think, where we worked the ball quite well, got down the left-hand side, and Udogie whips the ball across, and Brennan Johnson's there at the back post, but it takes a little nick off the defender, and their goalkeeper does well to get a hand to it, and gets to it before Johnson taps it into the net at the back post, where he always is. And then other than that, there wasn't a great deal of note. I can't really remember a proper chance or a proper opportunity for Bodo in the first half. And that's exactly the way we'd want it, because we didn't allow them to build into the game. We didn't give them any of the psychological or the emotional kind of energy that you get with either scoring a goal or having a great deal of pressure and creating lots of chances. So that's fantastic to see, and it was really good. We even went to the not dark art, but the slightly grey arts of slowing the game down, right? To take the tempo out of it, not allowing the opposition to get up ahead of steam. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that if it helps you get to your goals. And our goal was one just to get to the final in Bilbao. So that was great. I want to give a special shout out. I've heard lots of people doing their player of the match. Mine was Romero. And I think there were a few out there that had really, really good games that you could name. But Romero, for me, played the perfect game in terms of his skill set. And in fact, he didn't play the ball out of defence as much as he normally would, which again speaks to how we were looking to build the play. We weren't going to try and play through the lines or play a great deal at the back. We were happy to move the ball on and then battle for it. And Romero was excellent all game long. It felt to me like he won every aerial duel, everything that came his way, and he stayed just on the right side of that aggression and that commitment. And it just goes to show what a quality player is in there. If he could do that consistently, and it does feel like he does it because he cares and it matters, and it's a semi-final and it gets us through and it gets him through to another final. It does feel like that's where you'd want him to be. So in a higher performing Tottenham team, you might see a more consistent Romero, because he's been very inconsistent this season. But he deserves credit for the performance he put out there last night. He was exceptional. Our first goal comes from a corner by Matisse Tell, and I found it quite interesting that the opposition fans felt like we were time wasting when Matisse Tell was taking the corner. But for me, when the camera zoomed in, I genuinely felt like there was and you get this on an artificial pitch, right? There was almost like a raised bit of turf where you couldn't put the ball down on the line of the corner. And he was kind of like experimenting whether to put it over that little hump or before the little hump in terms of where he wanted to hit it. But he delivered a nice ball in. It was quite high, but he whipped it, so it dropped with a bit of topspin. And Romero does brilliantly. He catches the flight of it very early. He's in the middle, kind of running from the penalty spot position, but he catches the flight of it before his marker, peels away to the back end of the 6-yard line, and then a towering header. He gets up early and he really hits it hard, and he heads it back into a super dangerous area. And Dom Solanke is exactly where he needs to be. He's occupying defenders and he's right in front of the goalkeeper, and he prods it in. It's an excellent set piece goal. Good whip delivery, win the first contact with a really good header as well. And then where it drops, try to make sure you get the next touch on that ball. And when you do that, and when you win 2 contacts in a row from a set piece in the opposition penalty area, the percentage chance of scoring a goal is very, very high. So really, really good to see, and credit to him for that performance. I thought he was excellent. Then kind of the next thing really of note in the game was our second goal. And this was an occasion where we were able to counter. It wasn't a particularly quick counter, but we were able to counter because I counted that Bodo committed 7 players into an attack. I think there were 7 players on the high side of the ball, so goal side of the ball, in terms of Tottenham's goal. So they really were in a position where they were pushing and they thought they could get an advantage, and that's how they play. They are quite a transitional team, and Biss does really well. He, again, deserves a shout out for a very, very good performance. some people might say he played within himself, but it's exactly what we've needed in this last couple of games. And he won the ball back really well. He kind of like reached his left leg around, so he doesn't give away a silly free kick right in front of our penalty area. Tackles the player nice and cleanly, moves the ball out. I think he gives it to Matisse Tell, who plays a lovely little ball on the inside of the fullback, and Udogie's away and running. What he does is he's really positive. He stretches the play. He keeps going. He's got no one in advance of him. He's got no support around him, but what he does is he stretches the play. He brings the team up, and then all of a sudden there are gaps, and we get players up with him as well. He feeds it to Sarr. Sarr does well. He recycles it, moves it on to Decky, who then just shifts it to Porro. And then what happens next is obviously a huge slice of luck. But we had won the balls up nice and cleanly, stretched the opposition, and then we got 6 players up into attacking positions at the point where Porro puts that ball into the box. So it would have had a chance if it was a better delivery, but it wasn't a great delivery. It just so happened to come off the top of his foot and fly in over the goalkeeper, hits the post and goes in, and it's that little slice of luck. And it just feels like this season there hasn't been a great deal of luck for Tottenham Hotspur, so it's lovely to see that we are doing the right things and we're earning these positions on the pitch, and then we get the rub of the green to go with it. So delighted to see that go in and effectively put the tie to bed. But this being Tottenham, you never feel like a thing is over. You always wonder at that point, kind of just over 70 minutes played, whether the opposition could go ahead, get a quick goal and make us nervy. But we didn't. We continued in the same manner. We'd made some changes. The players that came on did well. And we kept it relatively comfortable. There was, I think I can only remember a couple of crosses during the game. There was one in the first half, which the cross was too deep and the striker kind of headed it over because he couldn't get a good head on it. And then there was a couple later on in the game, and there was one particularly good one where Udogie, who was great all game, cleared a deep cross that came across, dropped towards the far post, and he kind of backheeled it away before the striker could knock it into the net. So again, good defending, good cover. Vicario had one very easy save to make from a kind of 20-yard shot from the edge of the box, straight at him. And then there was the penalty that was given, but then rightly rescinded because it absolutely wasn't a penalty. Porro gets a nice clean clearance on the ball, and then the player kind of goes down in installments to try and win a penalty. So delighted with that. We defended that pretty well, and again, I'm glad that VAR sent the referee over to the screen because very clearly it wasn't a penalty. Although if you're going to be hypercritical, the one player that maybe didn't have the best game, and he is kind of struggling for a bit of form at the minute, but it's why he's getting lots of minutes, is Decky. He struggled. He's actually the one that conceded possession in the centre circle for that chance that was scooped through for their player that ended up throwing himself on the floor for the penalty, or the penalty that wasn't given. So yeah, he's the only one that we're hoping gets a bit more back, because we're going to need him in the final. Arguably he's going to start, whether he starts on the right or in the middle, he's going to start in the final, I would expect. And yeah, we need him to kind of play himself into a little bit of form before that final. So overall, delighted with the performance, delighted with the statistics. Away from home, European Cup semi-final, no matter who you play against, that team deserves to be there. We deserve to be there. And statistically, we were the better team. On the scoreboard, we were the better team in both games, which is great. Clean sheet, that's very pleasing as well. And as I said earlier, the Spurs go marching on to Bilbao. And now it's all about this group of players taking the next step. This is the hardest step, is to get over the line when you're a club like Tottenham Hotspur that doesn't have a track record of winning things. We don't have that institutional kind of knowledge and memory of how to do it and how to get over the line and how to do all these things. Hopefully the manager brings that with him, with his experience and how much he's won in his career, and he can impart that to the players over the next kind of 10, 11, 12 days, whatever it is, before that final. So everything else that comes in between, we'll continue to watch the matches. We'll continue to see how we get on in the Prem. Game against Palace coming up this weekend, but it feels like the atmosphere among the fans is going to be a little bit more laid back until we get to within a couple of days. I mean, we could get thumped by Palace, and even though I'll be really annoyed by that, it'll fade very quickly, because I'll be able to lock it away, and then be thinking about Bilbao. Similarly to the Aston Villa game, don't care. It'd be nice for us to do something against Aston Villa, simply because I think, Villa, Newcastle, teams like that are big rivals to Tottenham now. And it'd be great to kind of pull them back by not allowing them an easy run at the Champions League, because that changes their finances and it changes their speed of evolution as well. So, quite like us to get a result. But again, doesn't really matter. Lose every league game between now and the end of the season and winning Bilbao, that's all that really matters to me at the moment. But I still would like to see some performances, and I still will be interested to see what the manager and the coaching staff do technically and tactically and player selection wise over these next couple of games, with a view to getting the strongest team out and performing in that final. So let's leave it there. Tottenham have done it through to the Europa League final, a second European final in 6 years, which isn't in itself too shabby. And hopefully we can do something to make this a special season despite all the challenges. This will be the ultimate kind of redemption arc for Tottenham. So I really, really hope we can get there and we can do a job. Anyway, let's leave it there. Have a lovely weekend, everyone. Come on, Tottenham.